Hello and welcome everyone to the iNetSoft 12.2 release webinar. My name is Ben Williams and I work in marketing here at iNetSoft. With me here is Sean Wilkins, who is a systems engineer at iNetSoft. So we're going to be spending about a half hour on this webinar. We're going to be detailing some new features and changes to the product, and Sean will be demonstrating some of the more prominent new features. We will be leaving time at the end after the demonstration for plenty of questions. So if you have any, please just enter those into the GoToWebinar question panel at any time. We probably won't have time to answer everyone, but if we don't get to you, we will reach out once the webinar is over to answer your question. So once again, please feel free to answer those questions at any time. I'd also like to add that we are recording this webinar, and everyone who registered for the webinar will receive a link to the video. Okay, so first of all, there have been some enhancements on the administrative side. We have updated the method of scaling up for larger data sets using the very popular open standards-based implementation that was developed by Apache Spark. So for those of you who are running very large data sets with a lot of runtime aggregation, I would recommend asking your account manager about this new functionality. We also have some new changes to scheduled tasks and to connection pools, which we won't be covering today. If you have an advanced custom environment, then this would be another change to ask your account manager about. Okay, we've added some new data source connectors to this version. Some of these are brand new. Others are replacements for older connectors. You can see them listed here. So if you are already using, for example, the older Google Analytics connector, you'll need to install the new connector when you upgrade. So some HTML5 enhancements. After a lot of rigorous testing, we have enhanced the HTML5 functionality of Dashboard to the point where the mobile application that we previously issued is really no longer necessary, as the functionality in a phone browser with HTML5 is now just as responsive. For this reason, we will be deprecating the mobile app. We are also replacing the old ad hoc report editor with a new HTML5 version with a fresh look and feel. Sean's going to be demonstrating this editor for us, and you'll notice it's been simplified for ease of use. Some other enhancements include the ability to test different VPMs by viewing them in Style Studio, and also enhancements to date filtering conditions. The VPM testing will be another feature demonstrated by Sean. We also have several enhancements at the request of our international customers. These include the option of a 24-hour clock instead of a 12-hour one, and also setting the worksheet to go along with the clock on the server's local machine. So we won't be detailing these here, so if they apply to you, then again, reach out to your account manager. Now, Sean is going to be demonstrating some of the new view sheet enhancements, including the option to assign colors to specific categories. There's a new script which keeps selection trees expanded, and also the ability to set transparency on target bands. And when he demonstrates this, you'll see why it's so useful. Okay, so in just a moment, we're going to transfer over to Sean for the live demo. Again, if you think of any questions, just feel free to enter those at any time.
Hello, this is Sean. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the new features that we have in the worksheet that will make it easier for developers to test their data sets and to make sure that what they're getting back is exactly what they want. We have a lot of customers that are creating environments which have multiple tenants in them. So sometimes you don't want to see data from certain users. So for example, we have a situation here where we have a manager who should be able to see everybody's data and a salesperson who should only be able to see their data. So if they want to check their sales numbers, for example, they would come in here, and this is just a preview, for example. So if Annie is a salesperson, Annie would come in here, and they would view their data, but they would only see their data. But for a manager, they would be able to come in here, and for Robert, for example, he can see everybody's data. So this is just a new functionality to make it easier for admins and developers to create worksheets and to be able to test and verify that your multi-tenant setups are returning exactly the data that you want. And the next worksheet enhancement that I want to talk about is a new way to set date conditions on your data blocks. So I know in the past a lot of customers are interested in comparing data from this year versus data from last year. So as an example, you can come in here to the date, and we have this in-range filter right now. So before, there was only this static list of, you could get the data from last year, you can get the data from this year. But we've added this new ability to set a variable here. So on your dashboards or on your worksheets, you'll be able to change kind of what slice of time that you're looking at. And this will make it a lot easier to make dashboards that are comparing data from different time ranges. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to move out of the Style Studio and the worksheet environment, and we're going to take a look at some of the user-facing changes that we've made. This is a dashboard that we've created for the purpose of demoing some of these new features. You might have seen some of the pictures from this as Ben was talking about some of the new features. The first one that I want to mention is this selection tree up here on the top left. And you'll notice that immediately when the dashboard loads, the tree is expanded. And we can see all these items under the headings. And this is a new script functionality that has been added in. We had several customers request this option, and we've been able to add it in for this version. In terms of visual changes, one thing that we've added for charts and data tip views is some new controllers for transparency. So if you'll notice, we have a target band here on this chart. And before, a lot of the times people would create these target bands, but they would be very dark. It's hard to see the lines overlapping sometimes. So we created this transparency option. So as you can see, lines that go through, it's much easier to see them. We've also added some transparency options for the data tip. So for example, if I highlight this value in our crosstab here, you can see that we have this little slightly see-through chart. So in the past, there was no option to kind of make this transparent, and we've added that in there for now. And the next thing that I want to cover is we've made a lot of changes to our coloring system based on feedback that we've gotten from customers. We've heard multiple customers tell us that they find it very difficult to set certain colors for certain values. So, for example, say you have open or closed issues or true or false values, and you always want closed to be red or false to be red. What you can do is we can assign specific dimensions to have specific colors now with this new interface that we've added. So this is a new button in the color pane here. So what we can do is we can assign a specific color to USA East, and then we can add a new dimension and set USA West to be green, for example. and hit OK and apply it. And you can see our chart change down here. Now, if you notice, this is also all ad hoc changing. So this is all things that a user could do just viewing the dashboard. It's not necessary to be a developer or have access to the Visual Composer to kind of make these kinds of changes. Should I mention the Visual Composer? Okay, so that's a lot of the new coloring features that we've added. And next I would like to take a look at the ad hoc report designer. We've maintained several of the wizards from previous versions, so if you're familiar with this, this will look very, very similar to you. We have the crosstab, the table, and the chart wizard still in here. And now I'd like to show you some of the ad hoc options that we have beyond the wizard. So one thing that many customers have mentioned to us in the past is a lot of customers are trying to move away from the Flash environment. One big issue that a lot of customers had with our previous iteration of the ad hoc editor, it was this Flash-based system that would always pop out from the left here. What we've done is we've redone this and gave it a facelift. It's now fully HTML5 and it has a trimmed down interface. So for example, I clicked on the ad hoc at the top and now it's all going to be through right-clicking on elements. So for example, if I have a chart here, I can right-click on the chart and I can open up the editor. Now for those of you that are familiar with our ad hoc in previous versions, this will look pretty similar but a little different as well. So let's just make a basic change here. So right now we have our sales and the date. So let's just change this to our average sales. So we can just open up this aggregate here and change it from sum to average. And then you just click away and hit done. You can also do the same thing with the crosstabs that we have. So for example, it's going to be very similar to the chart. You can just right-click on it here, and it has a specific editor just for it, just like the chart does. So if we open up the crosstab editor here, we can do the same thing, and we can change our sum aggregate into an average. And it's very quick, it's very simple, and it's a lot more lightweight than the previous Flash system that was in here for the ad hoc. In addition to being able to modify the charts and the crosstabs and their data bindings, you can also add some filtering. So if we right-click on the chart and we go to the filtering section here, you'll find that this interface is very similar to the older interface, but it's been rebuilt for HTML5. So if we just only want to see a certain salesperson's data, we can come in here, we can add this new condition, hit OK, and in just a second it'll come back and we should only be seeing data for the specific salesman that we had looked for. So we've been able to put that condition on there. We're only seeing the sales data for Annie. So there's been a lot of work that's been done on the ad hoc editor to make it lightweight and easy to use for front-end users. So at this point, these are the major features that we wanted to cover. So at this point, we will open the floor up for some questions and go from there.
Thank you, Sean. We do have a number of questions here. Start with, we have one viewer asking, is the new Salesforce tabular connector an ETL type process?
It is not. So all of our data connectors will connect directly with whatever data source you need. If you have an ETL process with Salesforce, that can certainly happen in the background, and then once your data has been exported and transformed, then we'll certainly be able to connect to that. But as far as us doing the ETL, our data connectors will not do ETL directly, but it can interact with the final result of another ETL process.
Okay, we have another viewer asking, do we now need Apache Spark for materialized views?
You do not. This is a new feature that has been added, so it's specifically designed for extremely large data sets. You do not need Apache Spark to take advantage of the materialized view functionality that has already existed in the software. It's just a new way to kind of work with extremely large data sets. And I would definitely recommend anyone that's interested in that to reach out to your account manager and let us know, and we can certainly work with you to help set that up and get that working for you. But out of the box, materialized views will continue to work as they have worked in previous versions, and yeah, you shouldn't have any issues with that.
Okay, so a question here that looks like it's a follow-up regarding Apache Spark. One viewer is asking, how do you define an extremely large data set? So I guess they're looking for like a rule of thumb.
So in terms of the one metric that we've used in the past to determine large data sets is number of rows. I believe numbers that I've heard on our end is I wouldn't recommend Spark for anything that is less than 10 million rows.
Okay.
So so when we're in the range of kind of millions and even beyond that, that's kind of the range that Spark would really kick in, and you would start to see a big benefit from Spark in that area. But kind of lower than that, and like anything that would come out of like an Excel file, for example, as a data set, you probably want to stick with our regular materialized view setups. But yes, for extremely large data sets, we're talking in the millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. This is kind of the range that Spark will kick in, and you'll see a big benefit.
So, all right, you have another question here. How does the new date condition mentioned earlier affect materialized views?
So this new date condition won't adversely affect materialized views by any means. The materialized view will still happen as normal, and all the data that you need, depending on what the potential parameters could be, should be included. So if you have this new date condition on there, you should still be able to materialize just as you have in the past, and you shouldn't have any issues with that.
Okay. Another viewer is asking, are there more tabular data connectors that will be coming in future versions of the product?
Well, I can't comment on any specific ones that we're working on at this point. We are talking to customers in terms of what are their needs that are not currently being covered. Anyone that has a data source that we're not currently able to connect to, we've built out this tabular data source system to be very extensible, and all of the ones that Ben has shown in this previous presentation are all built on top of the same tabular data source platform. So this new, it's kind of a lot of back-end technology that allows us to build new data sources on top of it quickly. So we don't have, I can't name any that we currently have in the pipeline, but this system is designed to be very extensible and open to improvement in the future. So I can't name any new data sources connectors that we're working on right now, but it's certainly a possibility coming in the future.
Okay. And now this question here, I'm sure the full answer will be too long, but just to give people a general idea of where to start, one viewer is asking, what steps do they have to follow in order to upgrade from 12.1 to 12.2?
So I believe that we have published an upgrade guide on our website. In the past, you are able to just drop in the jar files for the new version, and an upgrade will happen next time the server turns on. So I believe that process is still in place for this current version. Typically, we recommend our customers to do an upgrade process with their testing environment or their development environment first, and then once you verify that everything is good, everything works there, then do the upgrade with your production system as well. And that'll kind of ensure that if anything does go wrong, you know, it's not going to affect your end users right away. You can kind of make sure that everything goes smoothly. In terms of the upgrade process itself, it will be very similar to previous versions in terms of overwriting jar files, potentially some new ones. As part of the Spark functionality, there are several new jar files that will be needed to add it in. So if you're just looking to upgrade with the baseline stuff, then it should just be copying a couple jars. And I believe we have an upgrade guide on our website as well.
One viewer is asking, do we still need Flash in general to use the product?
To view any or consume any reports or dashboards, you do not need Flash any longer. Currently, we are still working on building a purely HTML5 development experience in terms of the Visual Composer. That's still in progress, so we don't have that pure HTML5 Visual Composer for this version. That's slated for the next release. However, in terms of consuming dashboards and reports, you do not need Flash at this point any longer.
I have one user asking, upgrading will not affect existing charts. Is that correct?
That is correct. After the upgrade process, all your charts, all your dashboards should be exactly the same. If they're not, for whatever reason, that's absolutely an issue that we can help you look into and we will correct.
Okay, so there are a couple other questions, but they're a little bit beyond the scope of this webinar, and we'll need to reach out to some of you for clarification with what your needs are with those. Once again, thank you everyone for attending the iNetSoft new release webinar. There will be a link to a video of this webinar emailed to all of you. So thank you very much for attending, and everyone have a great day.